much summarize the chemist point of view of soil. Right? The soil chemist, that's what he's looking about. They'll look a lot about interaction of nitrogen and phosphorus. I don't think that's important enough for us. Right? The third aspect is the point of view of the biologist. Right? When I studied soil science, they teach us lots of physics, tons of chemistry, none biology. Almost none biology. There was maybe one professor teaching soil biology. And I would argue that that's the most important aspect in soil. Okay? So life in soil appear at any scale, right? From the tiniest to the our size, almost our size. Bacteria, these are the smallest microbes in the soil. They can be the size of a clay particles. All right. So let's think about the scale. Bacteria cell can interact with clay particles because they're the same size, right? Bacteria are decomposers. We start talking about bacteria. They eat dead organic material, right? They are a decomposer. They take the fallen leaf that dropped into the ground or the dead animal that fall into the ground, and they start decompose this organic material. All right. Bacteria will eat the highly available organic material. They will eat the simple sugars. They will eat the proteins. They will eat amino acids. Right? All the small organic molecules. This is the food for bacteria. Right? Another interesting thing about bacteria, they really doesn't like to be suspended in water. They don't like it at all. So their solution for that is to extract glues. They always extract glue materials, organic substances that work as glues, as adhesives, to get attached into the surfaces. Right? They don't want to move around with the water. They want to stay attached. Right? Remember, bacteria is the size of the clay, and it can produce glues. Right? So you can see how one cell of bacteria can glue to itself a few clay particles. Right? These glues has an effect on the soil pH, and then they can increase the soil pH, so make the soil more alkaline, right? And once bacteria decompose organic material, they immobilize nutrients, so making nutrients not mobile. So once bacteria chow down on organic material, the nitrogen, the phosphorus, the sulfur, the calcium, the magnesium, all these nutrients are locked into the bacteria cells. All right? They are not available to plants or any other living things. So those are the bacteria in the soil. There is no soil on Earth without bacteria. All right? It's almost impossible to sterilize soil from bacteria. Right? So wherever you go around, there is always bacteria in the soil. Okay? Fungi are the second group I want to talk about. Fungi are also decomposer, but they don't decompose the simple sugars. They decompose the more complex organic substances. So the most common are lignin and cellulose, which makes wood. Right? Bacteria barely touch wood. They won't decompose it. Right? Fungi will. All right? We get to that. So the wood they decompose is rich in carbon, but very poor in nutrients. So the fungi has to balance its carbon intake with nutrients intake. So it needs to so it chow down on the wood, but it needs to find another way to find nutrients, so it can keep on breaking down the carbon, taking down the carbon. And now fungi grow at a thread-like, right? They keep going in the soil like mycelia hyphae, and they can branch out and keep growing simultaneously from 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 20 edges, right? And this one will go up here, and this one will go down here, and this one will go down here, and there's going to be more branching, all right? And say this area of the fungi decompose organic material. This is closer to the surface. It decomposes. It has more organic material up there, so it decomposes the organic material. Down here, there is less organic material, but there is no more minerals. All right, the mineral particles we talked about before, rich in nutrients, but they don't release them very easily. All right, fungi releases acids. Remember, the bacteria releases glues. The fungi releases acids, and these acids accelerate the breakdown of mineral soil. All right, so this is how they can, on one end, they can break down organic material. On the other end, they can break down minerals and bring these nutrients up. All right, now they will always grow from the tips. The fungi grows from the tips. The farther away from the tip you are, all right, the older the fungi hyphae, the more carbon it has in the hyphae. So the fungi always send more carbon back down its body, say, and thicken the cell wall of its hyphae. Right? So it stores carbon for long periods of time. Right? So that's a really good way to store carbon in the soil. Right? So this is our fungi. We talked about its acid. Acid decreases pH, so a very rich soil in fungi can have a little slightly lower pH, while soil without fungi and with lots of bacteria can have a slightly higher pH. Right? Fungi also immobilize nutrients, so they break down the organic material, they dissolve the mineral soil, they lock up the nutrients, they don't release it to the plants. All right? So whenever we have soil with only decomposer, we won't have nutrients available for plants. Right? We always need to fertilize the soil more and more. Next group of organisms I'm going to talk about are protozoan. Protozoan are unicellular, one-cell organism, just slightly bigger. All right. We said bacteria is the size of clay particle. We can think about amoeba, which is the most common protozoan, I would think. Amoeba can be 100 times bigger than bacteria. Right? It's a big cell. It's a really big cell, right? And they're grazing bacteria. They are bacteria grazing. They're sliming their way through the soil solution and chow down on bacteria. They eat hundreds of bacteria every day, or every hour. One very interesting. Okay, let's talk about the next group, and I wrap up the two groups together. Nematodes are the next group. Nematodes are worm-like microorganisms. They're very small. We can only see them under a microscope, right? And it's actually the most researched animal on Earth. The most research scientists made on animals was on nematodes. So we have a lot of knowledge about nematodes. But we can divide nematode species into 4 groups. One group chow down on bacteria, one group chow down on fungi, right? One group chow down on protozoan and bacteria and fungi. They will take whatever they can. Another group eats other nematodes. All right? And then maybe that's 4 groups. The 5th group is the parasitic, which most farmers, I'm not sure about gardeners, but farmers knows nematodes just by the parasites, because they're the pests in their fields, right? And if you think about it, there are parasites in any scale of life, right? There are parasitic bacteria, there are parasitic fungi, there are even parasitic birds. I was trying to think who's the parasitic among the mammals. Who's the parasitic among the mammals? And human was the only answer that came up in my head, right? Across all life, parasites makes maybe 10% of species. All right?
Oh, it's too many.
It's very little, actually.
Okay.
Thousands of species of nematodes, only 10% of them are parasites.
Okay.
Right? All the rest eats bacteria, fungi, protozoan, or other nematodes. All right? So, if we have a complex group of nematodes, even if we have some parasites, our other nematode predators will eat them. All right? Both protozoan and nematodes are predators or grazers, and they don't need as much nutrients as they're in the decomposer. So the decomposer are rich in nutrients. The fungi, the bacteria, they have lots of nutrients in them per carbon, say. Right? The protozoa and the fungi then don't need as many nutrients, so they release excess nutrients. They poop, right? And that's what poop is, releasing excess. I ate too much. Just my body doesn't need all the food I ate. It's just gonna poop it out, right? These poops are highly available plant food, right? This is the best plant food, right? And so we talked about the decomposer immobilizing nutrients. If we don't have the predators, these nutrients will stay locked. But once we have a predator's population, they will start to release excess nutrients into the soil, right? Another group of organisms in the soil are the macroorganisms, or the bigger ones. You know, we have arthropods, insects, worms, some mammals, right? So those are the bigger ones. They poop also, so they also cycle nutrients. But a much more interesting aspect of these organisms, they are transport systems. All right, imagine earthworms. It's rainy, it's wet. They come up to the surface. They chow down on the bacteria that decompose organic matter. So they eat the already starting to decay organic matter, but the really food is the bacteria that break it down, right? So when it's wet, they'll come up. They'll come up to the surface. You see them sometimes crawling on the streets, right? But when it starts to dry out, especially this is like a perfect example of California climate, when it starts to dry out during the summer, they will start burrowing deep, right? And when they are burrowing deep, some fungi, spores, some bacteria cells, some protozoans are attached to their body. They're going with them down deep, all right? So inoculating other layers of soil with biology, all right? Same with the insects, same with the mammals, right? So bigger organisms are a good way to transport biology. And I would say this is a very basic ecological principle. Diversity is resilient. All right? Diversity is resilient. The more species of bacteria I have, the more fungi species I have, the more predator species I have, insect species I have, the more functions my soil can cover. All right? If climate change a little bit, right? I have other group that can fill up the space, right? If temperature drops suddenly, I have other organisms that can take the space, right? So the more diversity I have, the more resilient is my soil, right? The more healthy my soil, the more diverse groups of organisms living in the soil, the more competition the pests will have. All right? The more my good microbes will eat the pest microbes. All right? They will parasite on pest microbes. All right? So the more organism I have, the more biomass of good organism I have, less problems with diseases, nutrient cycling. All right, and we talked about. Remember, let's wrap it up now. We talked about the glues and the hyphae, right? These two groups add a lot of strength to the aggregates, right? The fungi can wrap up this aggregate and hold it together. All right. Fungi also secrete some glues into the soil, not as profound as bacteria, but it does happen. So they also support aggregate building. All right. All right. I want to talk about another ecological concept, which is succession of species. All right. And the succession of plants communities in a given habitat. This is well researched already. So say we have a major fire, very strong wildfire, very high temperature, a foot or more of the soil is heating up to 200 degrees or so, all right? Or we have a volcano erupted or whatever, right? Everything is dead. Now we start over. Say no people around to disturb these processes. We let it go naturally, progress naturally, and we start see first species that come out: mosses, lichens, annual weeds, hardy weeds. that have a very short life cycles. They just grow very fast, produce seeds, and die. Right? Slowly, they'll change the soil chemistry and the soil biology, and other species will be introduced. We'll start to see more perennial herbs. We start to see more productive grasses, like oats and wheat and barley and stuff like that. And nitrogen fixing plants. All the legumes are starting to show up at this stage, right? After that, we'll start to see some woody plants, some shrubs, some chaparral, some small trees, all right? And it keeps progressing. I think we have a whole growth forest, right? That's the climax communities, right? And it is true in a forest in California. It is true in a jungle in the equator, all right? The old growth forest is the most productive community on Earth, all right? It's way more productive than our farmlands. Way more productive than our farmlands. The only thing, it produces biomass. It's just not biomass we can eat usually. Not all of this biomass we can eat. But those are the most productive communities we have. Soil microbiology, the microbe communities in the soil, they also co-evolve with the plants to have their own succession progress. Right? So, starting with the dead soil after a big fire, the only thing we'll find in the soil will be bacteria. That's it. Maybe a little bit of bacteria, not much. Very small diversity of bacteria will live there, right? As we progress along this succession process, we start to see more diversity of bacteria. Then we start to see the appearance of fungi. Then we start to see slowly, there's going to be a shift. There's going to be more fungi than bacteria in the soil. All right? If we go to an old growth forest and we take a sample, a spoon of soil there, it can be 70% just fungi cells. So there is more fungi than soil. I took a spoonful of fungi, not a spoonful of soil. All right? And so imagine the scale, right? I can have tons of bacteria growing in my soil. Remember what we said, how they affect the soil, right? They produce the glues, they alter the pH, right? They are locking nutrients, right? Only after a certain time we start to see the predators coming out. Then we start to see the fungi coming out. Then we start to see their predators showing up. Then we start to see the predators of the predators showing up, right? Then we start to see nutrient cycle, right? So only bacteria, mainly fungi. Some 1,000 times more fungi than bacteria in old growth forest soils. All right? So that's the succession. We mostly garden in the realms of chaparral and oak or pine forest, right? Very few of us garden. I lost the word.
Old growth plants?
No, just open lands. Prairie, yeah, exactly. Very few of us garden on these prairies. We barely garden annual weeds, right? We barely garden old growth forests. All right? So keep that in mind. If your soil is highly disturbed, if your soil is lacking biology, you have only bacteria, you try to plant a manzanita in there, good luck. Right?
For emphasis.
Right. Okay, that's the biologist's point of view of soil. And why do I talk about all this stuff? Like, this is like so much information. I chowed on your brains for a long time now. So I wanna, in the last maybe 10 minutes, I wanna wrap up and have some practical things we can do. We can manage our soil that can help us. We use this knowledge to better manage our soils, all right? We talked about texture. Let's go back to texture. Texture is the foundation for structure. Texture is given. We can do anything about our texture, but we can manage our structure, our soil structure. All right? Minimum disturbance. Right? Don't disturb the soil if you don't need to disturb the soil. Right? Every time we disturb the soil, two things happen. We chop and cut all the fungi threads that are growing there. All right, we disturb the fungi and we introduce oxygen into the soil, which further decompose the organic material we have. All right?
Would you say that again?
Yeah,
The last
every
part?
time we break up the soil, we introduce oxygen, more oxygen, fast. All right? That will further decompose the organic material we have.
Oh.
All right? So usually if I do need to break the soil, if I do need to till, right, I would always add something. I will add either fresh organic material and then let my garden rest for a few weeks, or I will add compost and mix it into, incorporate it into the soil. All right? Don't break up soil without adding organic material. Okay? That will help build the structure. And so we have a given structure, we have an idea about the structure of our soils. All right? I want you to use this knowledge to make up your water strategy. How do you water your garden? How do you use the rain to water it? Okay? And we touched it a little bit. We have a clay soil, we have smaller particles, we have more water retention capacity in our soil, right? And we have a bigger pool, a bigger pore space that can hold this water, okay? And we also said water displaces air, right? So if my soil is saturated for too long, the plant doesn't have air to breathe, no oxygen, all right? So my strategy on a clay soil would be to irrigate a lot of water at a given irrigation event, but space out the timing, all right? Whenever I have big particle soil, sandy soil, I will give a little bit of water, but maybe every day or every other day. Okay? This is how I strategize. So say I'm on the sandy end of the spectrum. If I have 2%, 1% organic matter, I will definitely treat this soil as sandy soil. I will probably water every day or every other day, right? If the same sandy soil has 10% organic material, right, you might starting to see some crumbling happening there, right? That means my water storage is bigger and can hold water for a longer period. So maybe instead of every other day, I will water every fourth day, right? So the texture and the structure of the soil can help you understand your water strategy, can help you plan your water strategy, okay? That's what I want you to take from that. When we talk about water and irrigation, we talk about timing and duration. Timing and duration. All right? Timing, always think about timing and duration. Okay? Because giving a cup of water to the plants once a day doesn't do much. All right? It can do damage also. All right? So, especially when we deal with native plants, we want to train these plants. They all have the capacity to send roots pretty deep, at least 3 feet. Even the grasses. Okay? Some grasses, you can see photos online, 7, 8 feet long roots. All right? So these plants can send their roots down deep. We want to train them to do so. All right? So whenever I irrigate, I'm thinking, how do I get more water down deep? All right? I don't care the first 5 inches dry. Okay? And if we are talking about the clay soil, on the clay side, if I give water every day, I'm going to keep the top 2 inches of the soil saturated all the time for a long period of time. That will make anaerobic conditions. Anaerobic conditions are the conditions for the pest organism to grow. All the plant pathogens, even human pathogens, most of them are living in anaerobic conditions. Either low oxygen condition or no oxygen conditions. All right? So we are trying to avoid it. I can have my soil saturated. I don't want it to be saturated for too long. I want it to be saturated for a few hours, up to a day. That's it.
What if you have a little, like you water and then there's a little bit of water sitting on top?
Okay. Let's talk. We talked about the compaction before, right? What happened when I compact the soil? Compaction can happen on every depth in the soil. Right? It really depends what caused the compaction. Right? It can be in the surface. It can be a little bit deeper. If compactions occurs in the first foot, I can probably deal with it by hand, just using a fork, a garden fork, and break it down. All right? If you have water puddling on the surface, it means your surface is compacted. All right? That's what you want. You want to break it, but you want to break it and think about how in the future you can make the conditions so that it's not happening again. Right? How do I have more organic materials? How do I make the conditions right for the microorganism to grow there to help build the structure?
It's kind of a catch-22 because you got to break it up for the organisms, but you're killing some of those organisms. when
That's
you
why I
break it
said.
up.
That's why I said every time you disturb,
Add
add
some
some.
compost. Yeah.
Supplement with some organic material is the best. Really. Right? Again, if it's fresh organic material, let it sit. If it's compost, you can plant right away. Okay? So that's the compaction. If it's deeper than 1 foot, compaction, you find compaction deeper than 1 foot, okay, that's a whole different story. That's much harder to fix. That's take much more time to fix. And usually if I find a compaction layer, a hard, very hard compaction layer, like 1 or 2 feet deep, I will think twice what I'm going to plant there. Alright? I would want to plant plants that are sending taproots, like carrot. You know, very strong, very hard, very deep taproot that maybe can break this compaction layer. Maybe. Right? What happens when I have compaction layer in lower layers of the soil, right? Water, we said water will take months to infiltrate through it. So what happened, I got water sitting here. So there's rain, water is sitting here. Next week there's more rain, sitting here. And in the meantime, it only infiltrate just a tiny bit, and then more rain's coming. You know? And what do I have here? Anaerobic conditions, no oxygen. Whenever it's saturated, there is no air. Air and water displace one another in pore space. Right? We talked a little bit organic material and why it's important to add organic material. 3%, I said 3% is the threshold. Below 3%, we barely see high activity of microorganisms. All right, not sufficient enough to have healthy soil. So if I start my garden less than 3%, my first strategy will be to increase organic material in the soil. All right. The best way to do that is living roots. Living roots. Plants secrete some 20 to 80% of the energy they harvest from the sun, they send it into the soil. 20 to 80%. That's crazy. All right? And the space adjacent to the plant roots are rich in microorganisms 100 or 1,000 times more than if you go away from the roots. All right? So plant roots, living roots are the best soil conditioners you can have. We talked about the microorganism. They recycle nutrients. That's one thing. They build our structure. That's another thing. They suppress diseases because they compete with the pest organism. Imagine that I have just bacteria in my soil and maybe just 2 or 3 or 4 groups of different species, right? And then, you know, the pest bacteria, the pest fungi, whatever, all the species that cause plant diseases, right? They have no problem. They have no problem to thrive in these conditions. If I have, say, 1,000 or maybe 10,000 or maybe 20,000 different species of bacteria and 20,000 different species of fungi, the pest organisms doesn't have a choice, doesn't have a chance, right? Let's see. I'm almost at the end. I don't know. Do we have a little bit more time, or we're done?
Yeah, you're doing a great job, man. I'd love to see more. Yeah.
My last
I'd love
point.
to get into gardening stuff and regenerative agriculture.
Okay.
Yeah.
So say that's a very simple test to see the soil texture. The soil texture and the amount of organic material, say, or the presence of organic material in my soil. Okay, very easy. What we see here, what happens here when we let it settle, the bigger particles will settle first. Usually the sand particles settles within seconds. It takes them seconds to settle down on the bottom. The silt particles takes minutes, maybe an hour to settle. Okay, the clay particle can take between few hours, a few days to a few weeks to settle. All right. Once the clay particles settle, I can roughly estimate how much of my soil is sand, how much is silt, how much is clay. Okay, I don't care if it's 22 or 23%. I want to know if it's 20 or 30, if it's 10 or 30, right? That's good enough for me as a gardener. The organic material, it's hard to say from here if I have 2% organic material or 4% organic material. And within the organic material, we said there is a big difference if I have 2% or 4%, right? The really best way to know how much organic material you have is to have a soil test. That's about that. So that's an easy test that can tell you about the texture, all right? Try to dig into the soil and see, do I have crumbles? Or do I have like a very sticky clump of clay that is just, I can work it out like ceramics almost. All right?
Ribbon test is what we call it. Ribbon test
Ribbon test, yeah.
in English. Yeah. I don't know.
That's another good word. Okay, so we know how to assess our texture a little bit. We know how to assess our structure a little bit. Maybe not good. That comes with practice. Compaction. Take a stick, take a bamboo stick, not too wide, and carve its end to a pointy end. Stick it in the ground. If you can stick it easily, it's good. If you find it hard, really hard to keep pressing it down, you've reached compaction there. All right, you reached. Again, if it's, you can mark on the stick 1 foot, 2 feet, right, and then you know the depth. If it's within 1 foot, right, you can take a garden fork, you can break it. Okay, if it's deeper than that, there's not much you can do about it right away. It's more of a slow and ongoing process to break that. All right, but if I do have a compaction layer 1.5 feet, 2 feet deep, maybe I won't plant manzanitas. Maybe I'll start on the more annual side of the succession of plants. Right? I won't jump into woody shrubs and trees. Right?
You do like burdock or comfrey, they have real long taproots to
You can
break.
you'll never get away with the comfrey. The comfrey will stay there for life.
Forever. Do that. Okay.
I like comfrey. I use comfrey in my garden, but
Yeah.
it depends how you want to do it. Thistles, scents really strong, taproots down.
Tillage radishes.
Tillage radishes. I'm trying to think about native.
Oh, sorry.
We're going off.
Lupines can work. Lupines are more advanced in the succession, so they're more
Got it.
the nitrogen fixing plants,
Okay.
right? But they do have very, very deep roots.
Yeah.
To use these plants, the very best thing you can do, use seeds and not potted plants. Right? Right? The first root that comes out of the seed, that's the taproot.
Yeah.
Whenever it reaches air, whenever it reaches the end of the pot, it's gonna die.
Yeah.
Right? And then you're only left with the lateral roots,
Got it.
the secondary roots of the plants, which they can sustain a plant for years. That's good. But the top roots can go very fast, very deep. We did lupines the other day, just cotyledons and maybe 1 true leaf from the seeds, that the root was like that,
Yeah.
right? Something like that, like a foot of fruit. Okay?
Was this the silver lupine?
It was
or-
Alphonse, yeah.
Yeah.
Aquaspawn would be another one.
Alphonse, yeah.
So you have a way to check for compaction. That's very important. All right. There are sticks with a pressure gauge that you can see. All right. There you can look up. You can find the number. What pressure, which above that plants can't really penetrate.
Yeah.
Okay. Plant's root can apply some force to break compaction, but only as much. Right. That's the compaction. Whenever you break, add stuff. Compost is the way to go. All right, compost is a whole different discussion. I can talk another hour just on compost.
Questions about compost.
I would say this: two ways to separate compost, different compost from one another. Okay, one way is to look at compost as a source of organic material. All right, that's the poorest compost you can find. Probably the one you find in the marina for free. It is just petrified, putrefied organic matter.
Yeah.
Right? It's just organic matter. All the nutrients are gone, barely any biology living in Right? The compost. I'm talking about compost. I'm talking, for example, the Marina compost, the Berkeley Marina, the compost they give for free, right? I would look at this compost as just organic material. If I have 2% organic material in the compost in my soil, I would use that compost. I don't mind. All right. Another way we can look about compost. Some compost we can look at fertilizer. Okay, it's organic material, and it also have a balanced nutrients, or maybe not balanced, but lots of nutrients in it. So it can be a nutritional addition, a fertilizer to the soil, also giving organic material. All compost will give you organic material, so that's the basic level of compost. They're all organic material. If it's a little bit better than just organic material, it has some nutrients in it. Right? If it's a little better than that, it has a balanced nutrients in it and lots of biology. Lots of biology. So compost can also be an inoculant. We can use that as an inoculant to introduce more species of fungi, more species of bacteria, more species of predators, more species of nematodes and protozoan, and all kinds of life. All right. So that's one way to look at compost. Another way to look at compost is the starting materials that form the compost. So I can make compost from kitchen scrap and manures, which will be high in nutrients, which means it's high in simple sugars, proteins, all this simple organic material, which means more bacteria will grow in this compost, all right? And the bacteria grazer will show up a little later. If I'll make compost with more wood chips or more straw or more dry leaves, I introduce more carbon into my starting material, I will end up with more fungi in the compost. All right. So it depends what I'm growing, depends what I wanna accomplish. This is how I choose my compost. All right. You can if you ever order a compost from a distributor, like a yard or 2 yards or 3 yards, you can ask them for their chemical report of the compost. They have to give it to you before you get the compost, before you buy the compost. So say, I wanted to buy some compost, reached out to 5 different distributors, I get 5 different chemical reports of their compost, and I can choose what compost I want for my needs. All right? So I can look at the pH, I can look at the nutrient content, that's a whole different story. I can just bring a spec sheet of compost and talk about that for an hour.
Next talk.
Yeah, maybe next time we can do compost talk. But there is a way to choose compost that is more fitting to my projects, what I want to accomplish.
But for like basic gardening, like any compost is good.
Any
without
compost is
aiming.
I mean, if once I tested my soil, say, and I see I had 6%, 8% of organic matter, I'm lazy. So I'm looking for the least amount of work I need to do in my garden, right? So I'm not going to add anything. I just let plant to live there. They'll keep replenishing the organic matter in the soil. If I have 1 or 2%, then for the next few years, I'm going to add compost. Compost, some of the compost we buy can have excess nutrients, too much nutrients, all right? So that's not a good thing as well. I work and garden in a community garden that's been there for at least 50 years. So I tested the soil there, phosphorus levels are crazy high. And phosphorus usually comes from manures. So that means people over time, every year, maybe twice a year, added compost. And now I have amount of phosphorus that prohibit plant growth. Alright? So don't feed plants, feed the soil. Alright? Soil organisms mainly eat carbon. Alright? So I garden carbon. I don't garden nitrogen. I don't check for nitrogen, I don't check for phosphorus, I check for carbon. Alright? That's the most important thing you can take first. I think that's it.
My
Yeah,
one
questions.
question about
Sorry.
compost. How do you take, if you're in a controlled situation like planting in a pot, how do you create your own compost with organic matter?
How to make compost.
Yeah, like
Compost.
if you just want to make small amounts, not large amounts for a huge garden, but just for
Warm
a few
compost.
potted plants.
Vermicompost, use worms, red wiggler. You heard about those before?
Yeah.
These are European species.
Okay.
We usually keep them in a container
Yeah.
and give them just kitchen scraps,
Yeah.
and they produce very good compost.
And do you add
small-
soil to that as you go?
I
along?
usually I take this material once it's done, and I use it mainly to seed starting. But it's really good.
Do you take it with the worms and everything? I mean,
No,
how do
I'll
you-
separate the ones. There
Yeah,
are ways you can look
okay.
it up.
How do you? Okay.
You can
got
look it up.
Okay. Okay.
If we ever do a compost talk, I will talk about it.
Okay.
Have you
Definitely
ever
do
found
that
your
for that.
worm compost gets really hard? Because my worm compost like form these almost like rocks.
That's that. That's the
That's
aggregate.
Okay, so
That's the
that's
aggregate. If you don't feed the worms for, if you ever seen that, you don't feed the worms for a long time, they'll start
to know what
eat
this thing is.
the aggregate.
oh okay.
They start break out the aggregate. What you left off is just like ceramic. You know?
Seed
Yeah. So it is
They-
it.
they
does
can
it still have
break
the
up the
nutrients
structure.
and stuff? Should I still throw it in the garden or?
It depends.
Okay.
It depends on your situation.
has
If your
top
soil
roots
is
that go
awful, I
down.
would add.
Yeah.
If you have a good soil, maybe.
Her in there.
Okay.
I mean, I have tried pulling that stuff out in.
Yeah.
Thank you. I have
That's
to
all.
go, but that was a
Sure.
great talk.
And then
learned a
I'll take advantage of this occasion. I want to advertise myself. I started doing gardening and consultation and fruit tree pruning and irrigation system. So if you have friends that want, I have a phone. I can write my phone number here. I don't have a card yet. Yeah. If you want me to come give talks somewhere else. Yes, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah. Enjoy your weekend.
Thank you. That's